Well, good evening. Hello, good evening. I'd like to call to order this committee of the whole meeting of the town of Saugeen Shores and extend a welcome to everyone in the chambers this evening. Our first order of business is a declaration of pecuniary interest, and I'll remind every member of your responsibility. You can do so now or when it arises on the agenda. None declared. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda. So our next item then is delegations, and this evening we have two delegations, and the first is Brad Scott. He's Pumpkin Fest Chair, and Joanne Robbins from the Chamber of Commerce. And if you just would like to come to the mic, and I know you have a whole bunch of people with you, and if you'd like, please introduce them so we know who are with you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'd just like to mention Pierre is joining us as well on behalf of the Chamber. He'll speak at the end. So as you mentioned, I have a whole crew with me back here. This is part of my board of directors. Some of them couldn't make it this evening, but guys, give a wave. These are the 5 people that could make it out with us this evening. A few people are away and other things. So here we are again. Pumpkin Fest is fast approaching. The staff and committee have been gearing up for this fantastic event, which we're hosting for the 31st time this year. I myself have been involved for about 25 years now. I don't even know how long I've been chair. It's been a while. Probably a good 10 of those years. So speaking with me tonight, as you mentioned, Mayor, is Joanne Robbins on behalf of the Chamber, and Pierre Donini, Chamber President, will be speaking as well. Firstly, we want to thank you for allowing us the time to present our delegation and are pleased to announce some exciting new changes and activities for Pumpkin Fest 2017. Our move downtown last year proved to be a success and met all our transition expectations. So again, we will be holding the event downtown. In your packages, you'll find our road closure request as well as our itemized town aid requests. We've met with town staff, police, and fire to go over these requests, and we've received their endorsements to move forward. You will note the following changes and improvements. Under road closures, all closures are the same as last year. See section 2 of your package, with the exception of the closure of the Pumpkin Fest Village, the main core from Bricker to Mill in that area around the missionary church. We will close from 7 p.m. From 10 a.m. on Friday until 5 p.m. on Sunday, as opposed to 7 p.m. Friday, for the safety of our volunteers walking back and forth across the roads, things like that. Please note there was also a typo in your original package, the dates of Pumpkin Fest this year. So it's September 29th is the start of the closure until the 1st of October at 5 p.m. Traffic flow, we consulted with all town departments. We've improved our north-south bypass. We will now be utilizing Bruce Street to detour traffic through Port Elgin as opposed to Waterloo Street to take advantage of that new extension to the road. We've also worked hard to tighten up our downtown closures. We'll be leaving all alleyways open and accessible to the businesses and residents that live in the downtown core, so there'll be no fencing blocking them from getting out or access to their businesses. And again, we'll be asking all Saugeen Shores residents to help us alleviate traffic congestion by keeping their cars at home, not leaving them parked downtown over the weekend, taking the shuttle buses, which will be running all weekend long, coming to our festival. Thank you. Joanne?
Hello, everyone. I get the fun job this year of telling you what's new and exciting at Pumpkin Fest this year. So I wanted to start by saying I've handed out some packages that include a wristband and a seed for you to practice your seed spitting. 10 a.m. On the Saturday. Sponsor is now 7 Acres, so they will be joining us. And I would like us to see us beat Al Barfoot this year. He's won 2 years in a row, so I think we need a good showing. Bill Walker won it last year, and Al Barfoot's 2 years before that. So it hasn't been home for a little while, that silver seed spitting trophy. So we have some tried and true favorites, like our Little Tracks Petting Zoo that's returning. Ted Bruce Telecom is bringing back Harvest Star Search on the Saturday. The entertainment stage is completely booked with local talent throughout the weekend, and we don't even have a room for any more. I'm very excited about the OPG environmental tent. That always houses our marine heritage and our heritage group and our friends of McGregor Point. This year it will also house Mad Science, which is, if you haven't been to one of these, kids have so much fun that they forget their learning. And OPG will also be displaying electric cars, so everything will be tied into electricity and circuits. We have the Giant Tiger Kids Zone, the Hay Bale Maze, the Maston Pumpkin Carvers, and the Friday night pub crawl is returning with the trolley transportation for $5. And that gets people around our town on Friday night from 7:30 to 2:30 in the morning. Saturday night, we're proud to announce that Pumpkin Fest will once again present Dry County, which is a country band, and that'll be on the entertainment stage downtown. If you want something to eat that weekend, the Legion will be running both its breakfasts on Saturday and Sunday. The United Church Harvest Dinner is once again going on. And then let's talk about some new stuff. Boston Pizza is going to sponsor a chainsaw carver. I'm not sure exactly what he's going to charge. I'm putting him beside the Midway and away from the petting zoo, so we don't have any troubles. And apparently, this gentleman from BC who has recently moved to Lucknow is really something to see. So we will. That is on Sunday. On Saturday and Sunday. Both. We have multiple vendors and, of course, our way-offs. Let's not forget that. Now, the growers always keep everything really close to the chest, so I'm not sure what's coming. I do know that the Quebec sites have closed. We will see a lot of our neighbors from Quebec this year. They've been calling and asking what's going on and where they can stay. So hopefully that fills our accommodators and all that stuff that we like to do. I want to end with something that was just confirmed today. Both days of the event, Brampton Batman and his Batmobile will be on site so that everyone can have a look and talk to Batman, and it's the Dark Knight version, so not the Lego version. So I think that's enough. Certainly watch pumpkinfest.org for changes. Our schedule of events should be up and completed the end of this week, and we're running as fast as we can. And of course, Pumpkin Fest will once again be a great hit. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. So I get the super fun part of the presentation. Last year we asked the community some informal questions. It was the 30th anniversary. We wanted to improve upon the event. I don't think you need to hear statistics from me about how important it is to the community, and I would even use words like it's part of the fabric of our community. But that doesn't mean we can't make it better. So last year we asked, what's the thing that can make it something that makes it more relevant? And the recurring theme was that there had become a small disconnect with the community and the festival. So we took that very seriously and brought it all downtown. And it was scary because it was a change after a long time, and but it was successful. Our attendance was up 17%. So people were happy with the change. The vendors took a deep breath. We're close to sold out this year. We're let's call it sold out. So which we weren't last year. So it's been a transition, and we're happy with the transition. But we don't want to stop the momentum because we have. I had the good fortune of being on the 150th committee this year, and I watched that committee in action, and I asked myself, what does this committee have other than $65,000 from Bruce Power, that we don't have is it had a wide range of community members. And that I really liked. It had council members, it had various NGOs or nonprofits, and so it had buy-in from a large subsection of the community. And we are going to turn the Pumpkin Fest Committee into that. And so that's our next major step on October 2nd, is to. In fact, I'm going to be asking every one of you to be a member of this committee, and I'm hoping for some staff too. I've already put some feelers out on some potential staff in the town that would make a big difference. And I think if we get to that step, I think it's going to make it's going to be the further moves to find out what more we can do. So that having been said, we're requesting a line of credit from the town of up to $30,000, which we expect to be a one-time event. It will be a one-time event. We will report back to council exactly how it went, and we hope to not have to use it, but it will help our planning significantly if we can have this in our back pocket as something that we expect to. If we have to use it, we will pay it back. So I'm going to leave that with you. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to field them.
Thank you, Pierre. I'll just point out that request we'll be discussing it formally farther on, so that you'll get a resolution tonight on it or an answer before.
Okay.
Tonight.
Thank you, Mike. That's
okay.
Great.
Any questions of the committee? Councillor Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, Pierre, and everybody here from the Pumpkin Fest Committee. I think your idea of moving downtown last year was a great idea. It condenses everything, gives everybody a closer venue to be able to see anything rather than having to disconnect from downtown up to the high school. I think that was a great idea. What you're looking at doing this year, I think, is another great idea. So I wish you all the best. Hopefully see you there, and maybe I'll be able to get out and practice my seed spitting, but I don't really think I rank up with the two big guys that are sitting on opposite corners here.
Oh, wow. Sounds like a challenge.
Councillor Mike Myatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your presentation, all three. And also congratulations on another great event last year. I think moving it downtown has certainly opened up some doors for the committee. And Pierre, I like your idea about the community-driven approach and expanding your committee. I think staff and the core volunteers you have can only do so much. It's a huge event, and kudos to Joanne and others. I know you burned yourself out pretty good that weekend, and hats off to everyone for the great job. A couple questions I have, and then a comment. But the $1 to $1.4 million in economic spin-offs. Am I clear that is an annual economic spin-off per year, Joanne, or is that cumulative, or is that?
No, that's for the year.
That's annual.
And that's the TRIUM is the tourism module that we use. Now it's not perfect, but I mean we've had it on some of the banner years when we have good weather. It's as high as $3 million. Okay,
and Joanne, while you're at there, is the 1.1 to 1.4 million in economic spin-offs, is that based on 30,000 people, 40,000 people, 50,000 people? What number are you using now for? Like I've heard 50,000 a few years back. I don't know what it was last year.
Yeah, and last year was between 20 and 25.
Okay. It's still a significant number,
yes.
Right? Over the last 15 years, put you on the spot, I should have asked you this question, I should have called you about this today. In the last 15 years, do you know what contribution, aside from in-kind services, barricades and fencing and shutting down streets and so on and so forth, what kind of a commitment have you had, financial commitment, contribution have you had from Saugeen Shores, from this council the last 15 years? Do you know?
We have never asked for cash.
So you've never had a financial...
In 31 years, 30 years, we have never asked for a cash contribution.
So it's always been in kind?
It's always been in kind.
Over the years, right? Yeah. Okay, I just want to formulate my ideas for the discussion later. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you guys for your presentation. I obviously have been a big supporter of Pumpkin Fest for a long time, a big sponsor and a volunteer, and I'm just generally a big fan of Pumpkin Fest, and it's a great event. But you know, a lot of these events, a lot of events in Ontario have been having difficulty of late. We just had another one in Saugeen Shores, the Maple Syrup Festival, which has been around for 50 years. Being done at Saugeen Bluffs. This year, they just couldn't do it anymore because of problems with attendance and not making enough money. I mean, that's basically what it boiled down to. There just wasn't enough revenue coming in to keep the thing going. And so that sort of crisis moment forced us to try to re-envision it, right, to come up with something new, to do something different with it. And thankfully, the Port Elgin BIA is going to try and do something different with it in downtown Port Elgin. And I think what you've done by taking the event downtown Port Elgin is part of doing that, and there's so much more that we could do with it, right? I mean, there's so many more things, places we could take it, and it has evolved immensely from the time it started 30 years ago till today, and it can continue to evolve and get better. And I think the important thing to do is to get the right partners at the table. And the town of Saugeen Shores has always been a partner and should continue to be a partner, and other partners from around the community, other groups, and there's lots of them who participate already and could participate at a greater level, and re-envision that event and make sure that it's sustainable. And I think it can be sustainable in the future. It just needs us to get together, and hopefully, so I'm hoping that we can do what we need to do to bridge you here, to make sure the 2017 event takes place, and that Joanne doesn't have to be too stressed over it. But then we can have the meeting, like you said, on October 3rd, that we can get together right after it and work together and figure out how we're going to make it a sustainable event, not just for 2018, but far into the future. So I know that that's what you intend to do, and I hope that we can have those discussions a lot earlier, so we don't have to be in this position a few weeks before the event next year where we're scrambling and worried about the event. So, but thanks for coming in, and well, hopefully we get some big pumpkins in a couple of weeks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to also add an important point that I noticed in your presentation, which is that you didn't directly mention, and that is the fact that there were 37 not-for-profit organizations that are able to do significant fundraising as part of this event as well. And I think that's an important thing to mention.
Thank you. You're right.
For giving that opportunity.
Well, thanks very much, Pierre, and we're looking forward to the competition. I'll be seeing Warden Barfoot tomorrow, and I'm going to tell him about the challenge. So.
Yes, let him know.
Thanks. Best of luck. So the next item on the next delegation, is Corwin Cambry. He's the director of the Southampton Residents Association, introduced by George Calder. He's also with the Southampton Residents Association, and it has to do with Chantry View sidewalks. Welcome, Corwin and George.
That should make a difference, shouldn't it? Thank you very much. I just wanted very briefly to give you some background on Corwin. First of all, I want to tell you that for 40 years he was a professional planner in the Niagara area. And then he became the head planner on what is known as the the Regional Municipality of Niagara. Now that is made up of 12 municipalities that have amalgamated together. So he was busy working with all those planners over those years. And the sort of things that he was involved in would be such as the official plans, design guidelines, agricultural policies, and many other items. And it's maybe worth pointing out that on some occasions he would be called as a witness before Ontario municipal boards and sometimes even courts. So that was what he did for 40 years. And when he retired, he was asked to become a commissioner of planning and development in that area as well. And that position, of course, was not a full-time job by any means, but he did continue to do that until just July of this year. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention is that he and his wife and family started coming to this area in 1972. And they came every summer for part of the summer, right up to the present time. The only difference is that a few years ago, he purchased a home in Saugeen Shores. And since that time, he and his wife have spent at least 5 months of each year here. And then throughout the year, they on occasion come here as well. So he's very familiar with this area. And so I think that gives you some idea of his background, and I'll turn it over to him now.
Thank you, George. Mr. Mayor, councilors, and staff, I wouldn't believe everything George just told you, but it's close, more or less. Anyways, I think Pumpkin Fest is just part of many activities in Saugeen Shores, which is a special place made up of unique communities. And I want to focus and lead into Chantry View by stating, as it's set out in your official plan, everyone in the official plan, which is everyone's official plan, all our official plan, the vision is to help preserve both the identity and the diversity of the unique communities that jointly form the town of Saugeen Shores. So there are a variety of communities, different characters of communities. What a surprise then that a walkable, bikeable street, Chantry View Drive, is to be turned into a car-first street. Wider pavement, not a lot, much wider, but still wider, still enabling cars, curbs, and therefore, in order to accommodate the cars, we have to put the people on the sidewalk. None of that is needed. Chantry View Drive is part of the historic, tourist-oriented waterfront community character of Southampton. And I must say that a fundamental part of our official plan, your official plan, our community's official plan, is the vision and objectives section to ensure that the scale of development in the historic waterfront community reflects this character. Widening roads does not reflect the character of that community. This opening section on community provides direction. It provides direction for the rest of the official plan sections. In other words, if there's a conflict or concern, you refer to the overall vision set out in section 1 and the policies in there, which provide direction to the rest of the official plan. Chantry View Drive reconstruction is not long, but will be distinctively different than the existing character. There is a conflict, a definite conflict, with the visions and goals in the foundations of our official plan. What next? If the directional part of the official plan is disregarded. That's section 1. There are up to 11 local streets in the area that would end up with more pavement, or could end up with more pavement, more runoff, and less vegetation. This is in the area between Morpeth and Bay Street. The historic community that the official plan was intended to preserve would be changed from a walkable community to a car-first community, a suburban subdivision, just like many other centers, and the whole uniqueness that the official plan is intended to preserve would be ignored. I believe that few, if any, people want that to happen. My wife and I, as George said, have been coming here a long time and have chosen to invest in Southampton by buying a house here. Our children grew up here. We walked through that area. We biked through that area. Our grandchildren now walk and bike through that area. And we don't have any problems. It's a beautiful area, a lovely community, and we don't wish to see it changed drastically. So we have, as the Southampton Residents Association, have 3 actions that we would respectfully request, Mr. Mayor, request of council. First of all, put a hold on the reconstruction of Chantry View Drive. Just put a hold on it. Just leave it sit there. Second, undertake a study of the area from Morpeth to Bay Street, and the boundaries would have to be defined through discussion with the community. And I think that study is important, particularly if you're going to change your vision and overall direction in your official plan by going for wider roads and curbs in many other streets. And then thirdly, consultations, extensive consultations with the community, which should be part of the study at the beginning, on the way through, and at the end. So put a hold on the reconstruction. You don't want anybody to come forward and say, well, look they did it on Chantry View. Why can't they do it on Lake Street? Why can't they do it on Peel Street? Why can't they do it here? No, put a hold on it. Undertake a study of the area from Morpeth to Bay Street, and extensive consultations with the community. The official plan, our official plan, does have policies on active transportation and improving public consultation. This is an opportunity, councillors, Mr. Mayor. This is an opportunity for council to support a walkable community and to engage in public consultation. And I thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity to make this presentation.
Thank you, George and Corbin. I'm going to take some questions. I just point out that this presentation, there is nothing on the agenda this evening to do with Chantry View. So if there's any questions for the committee to clarify his presentation, the staff will come back, I suspect, with a recommendation or a report at some future date on our path forward with Chantry. But thank you for your presentation tonight, and I'll just ask any member of council has a question or for clarification. Councillor Mike Meyer.
Mr. Mayor, my only question was to you, Mr. Mayor, to our Director of Public Works. When is the report due to come back to council?
We were waiting to see the outcomes of the open house, and so we'll have a report either the next meeting or the meeting after that. The next 2 meetings.
Any further questions? Councillor Manoj.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my understanding, Mr. Cambery, is that your professional background would include understanding fully how we will deal with stormwater management in the future. And at the open house, there were a number of people who were recommending that there are other methods of stormwater management that don't include asphalted sections and curbs and gutters. So have you got a suggestion? That's my first question. Have you got a suggestion for stormwater management, especially with the ensuing climate change and the increase in increasing precipitation that we have to deal with? And my second question is, where is your supporting documentation that paved roads, curbs, and sidewalks increase the speed of vehicles?
Those are good questions. On the second question, there's considerable documentation on that in a variety of studies, and I'm sure your staff can find it, but if you want me to look it up and get it for you, I can. Okay, and the second point on stormwater management, yes, I am aware that there are alternatives to pavement and storm sewers that are much better, but I am not an engineer in that regard, and I do not have the details on that. But that should be part of the consideration of the study that we're requesting.
Okay, go ahead, Neil. If you had a supplementary, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand. That's quite fair. So, with respect to you and to your background then, Mr. Cambray, I don't think it should be onerous on our staff to dig into details about how the speed of cars increases when they put curb. I'm sure they can find it, but you're making that comment, and you're representing an organization that is standing behind you saying those cars will increase their speed. So I'd like to find that documentation from your area if I could. And secondly, we have made great presentations on stormwater management. So if you know of a different stormwater management process, then I'd like to hear about it, because then I might be able to support that difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Cambray? If not, thank you. If you do have some documentation, you can give it to our clerk and ensure that Councilor Minaj will get it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So the next item on the agenda is a general government staff report, and it has to do with the Southampton Town Hall and Library presentation. And I believe we have two people, Sean O'Reilly and Samantha Dopide. Oh, sorry. I think Greg, I apologize, Greg. I think Greg Lancaster is going to introduce our presenters and just bring us up to speed about how we've got to this point. So, thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. The staff report is before council, so I'm not going to go through it word by word, but I might just give a little bit of background information. When we went to or submitted the RFP out for to the public, we got 63 plan takers. We had a mandatory site meeting, which we had 17 individuals show up for that site meeting, and we ended up with 9 official submissions. And then out of that, the committee, and which I was a part of, we went through all the submissions and came up with the final submission from Three Stones Architects. So I'd like to call on Sean O'Reilly and Samantha Dopide at this time to make the presentation.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg. Good evening, Mayor Smith, members of council, members of the public. It's our pleasure to be presenting to you the feasibility study and conceptual design for the Southampton Town Hall and Library. We are Three Stones Architecture and Design. I am Sean O'Reilly, and with me is Samantha Dopide. We are a fully licensed architectural firm with offices in Barrie and Lisle, Ontario, and our philosophy is based on creative merging of user need, site, built form, and sustainable practices to discover unique aesthetic expressions that create exceptional design solutions. We make architecture that is engaging, distinctive, a celebration of craftsmanship, and a delight to the senses. To do this, we collaborate with our clients to realize these visions. On April 25th, 2017, we responded to the RFP for the Town of Saugeen Shores Architectural Feasibility and Design Study for the Southampton Town Hall and Library. The following is an excerpt from that project outline. A conceptual design study to consider the feasibility of connecting the existing town hall with the library, providing new shared spaces and facilities such as accessible washrooms, a fully functional elevator, public meeting rooms, a programmable space for existing and future growth for both facilities while maintaining the integrity and historical significance of the old town hall. The design is to be developed in conjunction with input from the Town Hall Ad Hoc Committee, municipal staff, management, and patrons of the library, leaseholders to the Town Hall facility, and members of the public. In addition, overall site plan considerations should be given to the surrounding space for future expansion, amalgamation of the boathouse, the art school building, and the Coliseum area. An environmentally friendly approach should be considered wherever possible. We were very excited to be selected as the firm to move forward with this very important venture. We presented to the Town Hall Ad Hoc Committee a workflow which defined the process that we would follow. We began with a structural analysis of the library, and it was performed to look at potential renovations and or additions. Unfortunately, the results indicated that the existing library, in whole or in part, was not structurally or financially feasible. Our next step was to review the previous studies completed and research both the physical context and the historical context of the community. We looked at the Thor-Dignam report, done in 2011, the Dunn Planning report, done in 2011, and the Downtown Southampton Streetscape Study, done in 2014. Large-scale physical context. We looked at the large-scale physical context, looking at community points of interest, including cultural, recreational, and tourist destinations, public services, and connections to neighboring communities. On the smaller scale, we looked at the physical context of the community hub site and the buildings and landscapes and access points. The town hall acts as a corner anchor for the city block. Flanking the town hall are the library and art school. In the center of the block is the Coliseum and boathouse. This block itself has numerous entry points, making it very permeable and reinforcing its importance as a community destination. So the area which we studied was in the yellow. For the historical context, we utilized the Bruce County Archives, and included with that was these two publications which were very informative in painting a cultural history of the area. This included people, both European and Indigenous, industry and its development over time, and how settlement patterns began and continue to this day. Most importantly, it shed light on this community's values. While completing research, we also had our first meetings with staff and the Town Hall Ad Hoc Committee. We expanded on the concerns and desires which had led to the RFP. We also established our working relationship with the committee. On June 8th, we met with the Town Hall user groups, the Bruce County Library staff, and stakeholders. That evening, we had our first public meeting. We introduced ourselves and the projects to those present. We received a lot of very good and very encouraging feedback on what community means to the people of Saugeen Shores and how a community hub could best serve them and their visions of the future facility. We combined and analyzed all of this information to develop what we called a functional program. Functional program is a document that identifies for each current and potential user the individual spaces required for activity, size, adjacencies, and occupant load. This is the summary of the functional program, which is in your package. This specific room set data or the specific data for each of these is found in the room data sheets attached to the report. We continue meeting with the Town Hall Ad Hoc Committee to revise and refine the program for the approval to move into design. We're finally now in a position to meaningfully begin the design stage. There were initially 3 different design concepts developed. Each one had its unique attributes and with different flow and program relationships. We met again with the ad hoc committee and staff to review and discuss these designs. From these consultations, a 4th design emerged. To achieve this, once completed and reviewed with the Town Hall Ad Hoc Committee, a second public meeting was held on August 2nd, 2017. Design seemed to be well received, and a number of valuable suggestions were made. We implemented these suggestions, and a final concept of the design was complete. We prepared the report for staff. Prepared the report for your your consideration and review. So, with the design, there were 9 different themes which had to be maintained throughout the design of the conceptual design of the project. The first was preservation of the town hall. The second, accessibility. The third, the library of the future. It had to be open and inviting. It required flexible spaces. It required a prominent and front and rear entry, an exterior accessible public washrooms, meeting and gathering spaces, and performance gathering spaces. Our influences. There were numerous influences that came to bear on this project. Historically, the influences included water, which became a thematic influence throughout the design on many levels. The long and short docks with their sweeping curves, and the maritime history was another thematic influence. Native influences in the area, which continue today, are manifest in the medicine wheel. The symbol of native culture representing community, equality, wisdom, and learning, among other things. Working in conjunction with the medicine wheel is the cardinal axis relating back to maritime navigation. So essentially, broken down, the design is 3 separate blocks. So the one block is the town hall building, which will be rejuvenated. The second block to the east is the new library and amenity spaces, and between the two is an atrium space. So in the plans which you were given and in the model representations which are to follow, we broke down each of these main user areas into color-coded groups, and you can see all the colors here. So I'm not going to go through them because this will take a while. So when you see the colors, don't think that's the color that you're going to be looking at in a final building, because it's just conceptual to identify who's going to be where. So starting with the grade level, we have a North Plaza and a South Plaza, and we're linking the two with this walkway. The North Plaza is a more formal plaza, and it's anchored by a new flagpole here, and with planting, the extension of the road is based on what we saw in the streetscape plan, and so we're using landscape features to help frame the front of the building, and that flagpole is centered on the front of the town hall. In the walkway itself is is of a more compressed space. It has compressed spaces and open spaces so that there's a variety of spaces and planting areas with seating so that it promotes the idea of gathering. And the top portion is the South Plaza, which can still be maintained for doing markets and that sort of thing. And on either side of that is a grass bermed area, which does a number of things, including it can be used for seating. It helps to provide noise control, and it helps to reduce the amount of heat island effect. When you enter the building, the main entrance is off the North Plaza through a vestibule located here. Immediately off the vestibule and into the main front lobby of the building is the tourism and reception area. From there, you have one of two elevators. This is the principal public access elevator. Second elevator is back here, which is more of a service elevator. But this is the primary elevator for the public. We have stairs that go up to the upper level and stairs that go down to the lower level. Now, I should point out at this point, one of the primary impetus in this design was that you could access the building at grade. Grade right now is 5 feet above the lower floor of the town hall and 4 feet below the second level. So to enter at grade means you're entering between floor levels. And it was very important that the floor plate of the addition to the east, those floor plates align with the floor plates of the town hall. So to do that, the immediate requirement upon entering the building is to be able to, in circulation, get you up and down between those different levels. So this is the main circulation hub right here. So you got the elevator, you have stairs up, you have stairs down, and then you have a ramp. And to provide a lot of visual interest as well as being able to squeeze a very long ramp into a very small space, this ramp ended up taking a more playful serpentine shape. At the back, so once you get to the lower level, you can come back up to grade along this ramp here. So that gives you an idea of the kind of length of ramp that's required. And you have a rear lobby that has a vestibule entrance to the walkway that connects to the South Plaza. This is the lower level. So on the lower level, when you come in and you come down the stairs here or down the ramp, you're into the main public amenity space, which is a very large, essentially performance type area. This is where the medicine wheel comes into play, and it helps to rotate the axis of the whole building so that it has a more direct connection with the South Plaza. Around the outside edge of that is an amphitheater. That amphitheater goes up to grade and then up again to meet the second level. There's seating for approximately 100 people on that amphitheater. So it becomes a very large indoor performance space. On the town hall side, the interior we envision renovations to that, essentially opening it up and providing movable partitions so that it could be used more effectively by the art gallery, who is the current tenant, but could also be used more effectively by any other tenant that might be there. The art gallery has expressed an interest of being able to, through this connection, this lower connection as an entrance, it could actually set up exhibits within the amenity space. On the east side, of the lower level, is the lower level of the library. The library program for this area is, we call it the louder lower level, because we've put in the children's programming, the teens, computer rooms, classes, all that sort of thing can go in there. And there's an internal stair that links it to the upper level library. On the far east side of this, we're proposing a light well that will go down to floor level in this edition, so that along this side, you don't feel like you're 4 feet below grade. You'll actually be at grade. So this is one of our daylight harvesting tools that we're using to get as much natural light into that lowest level as possible. This area has tremendous potential. At this end, we've considered using it as a children's play area, and as such, with an appropriate garden wall, it can be a perfect, secure area for children to play. This end is the first of the community meeting rooms, community rental spaces. And then underneath here, we have public washrooms, and this is where we envision the mechanical spaces going. So working our way up, so that's the lowest level. This is kind of the mid-level at grade. Oh yes, thank you. At this end on the exterior, we still are maintaining the exterior public washrooms. So we have accessible washrooms. The ones that were here would be demolished. The new public washrooms would go over here. So this is the second level, or 5 feet above grade. So on the town hall side, this will be opened up as much as possible. And again, with movable partitions, this can be used as an open gallery space, or it can be reconfigured any way that's required. Off the back, we have exit stairs and the service elevator. From the other side, so access to this at this level is actually gained from the other side. So you've got the elevator and the stairs coming up from that entrance lobby, and then you have a bridge connection which crosses over the atrium area. And so this is one of the curves that's influenced by the long and short docks. So that's one of the maritime influences that came into play. So we've used that to create sort of internal lobby spaces. So these also become viewing positions for activities that are happening on the lower level of the atrium. And then this is the upper level of the amphitheater. So this is the library itself, which takes up essentially most of that floor plate. At this end is where the adult area is, so adult stacks and that sort of thing. In the center is the circulation desk, the main primary entrance into the library, and staff functions here. At this end, we have the lounges, reading rooms, study areas, that sort of thing, and they have access directly to an exterior terrace and a coffee shop, a little cafe. So the cafe can be accessed directly off of this second level, has immediate access to the terrace, and there's also a ramp that goes down to the South Plaza from this location. So this is the third level. So again, starting on the town hall side. So this is the new assembly hall. Well, it's the old assembly hall, just kind of reimagined. So the first thing that we proposed doing was to take out the existing ceiling and put in a new ceiling, a cathedral type ceiling, which is similar to the ceiling that was originally there. To access it, there's a number of ways of accessing it. We've reconfigured the entrance stairs, so the stairs coming from the outside corner would come up. They'd be slightly narrower, and we've straightened them out. We've removed the old lift and the old washrooms, so this now becomes the lobby space for the assembly hall. And above that, we're suggesting a mezzanine access from a set of stairs that go over those. In doing all of that, in removing the ceiling and opening up this floor plate, we can actually re-establish those north-facing windows which were originally blocked off on the town hall, so you get those windows back. In the corner here, where the kitchen is currently, we'd like to remove the kitchen and turn that into a community meeting room. So that's where a lot of the user groups could have their meetings, and it could be rented out by anyone. It's such a beautiful space and has such tremendous views up and down the street. It's probably one of the nicest rooms in the city. Probably it's one of the nicest rooms that I've seen in a while. And so I would like to see a return back to being more of a public space as opposed to a service space. So in the hall itself, we have proposed putting retractable seating, which would go up to here, which would then support the edge of the mezzanine up above. The seating in the retractable seating, we estimate to be about 182 people. And then on the upper level, you can probably get another 46. So substantial amount of seating, which can all be compressed and reduced. We're proposing in the stage area that the existing stage be removed and a demountable stage be put in, and that provides maximum flexibility for whatever kind of production or presentation or whatever is going to go on there. Directly off the back of the stage would be a connection to the upper level addition, which is basically support space, storage space, and that sort of thing for the assembly hall. Now, to get to the assembly hall from the main entrance, you would come in down below, you go up to the library level, and then you'd come up these stairs here, or you'd take the elevator. And then you'd have at this level the option either going across one bridge on the north end or the south bridge. Again, these bridges providing excellent and interesting views down to the lowest level of the main atrium space. This also provides lobby crush space for whatever may be happening in the assembly hall. And it provides crush space for the activities in this part of the building, this being the largest of the community amenity meeting rooms. This one is designed to have 50 people in convention-style seating, and it can be divided into two spaces. So you can, it's a 1,300 square foot room that can be divided in half. At the other end is the other community meeting room. In between the two are the public washrooms that support the assembly hall and these spaces, and a catering-style kitchen. Off of these two spaces, and with access indirectly from the assembly hall, are two large roof terraces, so that if you were to have any kind of a function up here, you have the catering capability, and you have the ability to have it move on to the outside exterior. So this is a slideshow that we had prepared to give you more of a three-dimensional view of what the proposed design is. As you can see, the red is the library, the blue is the meeting spaces. Moving our way around, see at street level as you're coming up. So there's the main entrance vestibule with the library half a level up, and the meeting rooms above. The atrium itself, we envision being glazed, so that is as open and inviting as possible. So as you come around, you get kind of teasing views of what's going on inside with the bridges and the elevator and the stairs. That's the direct view to the front entrance vestibule, which is right here. And this guy is not, it's a little difficult to see with these colors, but that's the tourism office, and reception is right there. When you move inside, so these are your bridges. This is the upper floor plate, which could act as the crush space for the assembly hall. This is the serpentine ramp going down, and that is the main performance assembly space in the atrium. And that's the full amphitheater. So it acts not only as an amphitheater, but it acts as stairs. It could host any number of activities. I mean, it's just limited only by your imagination. And along the side here is the ramp that comes up beside the town hall. I can't emphasize enough that there's one of the primary reasons for doing the design this way was to make the most out of the town hall. So you've got this wonderful juxtaposition within the atrium space itself of the historic town hall on the one side, and then the new and the modern dynamic library and amenity spaces on the right. This is the view of the rear entrance. So that's the rear vestibule there. That's the upper terrace level, the upper meeting room, and then the library at this level. And these are stairs going up to that terrace to the coffee shop, which is right there. And then the ramp that would go down the other side. This is just an example of what the seating spaces could be like over there. This is the view down the pathway between the town hall building and the art school building. So it provides an interesting variety of spaces and a sense of entry because you're going through an actual physical portal. That's the view looking back through it the other way. But you can see on this side that the town hall is celebrated as much as possible. A view from a little further back, giving a bigger idea of the grassy berms that we were suggesting and kind of garden seating areas. This is a view from the upper terrace looking down into the atrium space. So very dynamic, very exciting. View from the other side looking back. This is the view from the upper terrace above the library. And you would get an incredible view right down the street to the large flagpole at the end and the teasing bit of the shore as it's shown there. This is a shot which shows the curved roof over the addition piece. The curve came from the connection with the water and the wave action of the water. So it's relating directly back to the historical foundations of the town. More of an aerial view, so you can see it from all angles. Now the hard part. So we did a budget estimate, because once we had developed a conceptual design, we had enough pieces to the puzzle to actually put some numbers to all of this. So the cost estimate for this is $10.7 million plus HST. So that's a construction cost, including a 20% contingency fee, which is what is recommended. Industry standards at this point in a design process. To move it forward, soft costs that we've identified, these are the only ones that we've been able to identify, but if you move forward, consulting fees are likely to be in the range of about $560,000 to get it to being tender ready, and then through the construction phase another $140,000, so a total consulting fee of about $700,000. So the total cost, so that's everything in, except for tax, is 11.4. So the next step, if you were to move forward with this project, we have completed the conceptual design of the project. So the next step would be schematic design, where you would take the elements of the conceptual design and give them some actual meat. You determine what the structural system is going to be, what the mechanical systems are going to be, remove some of those assumptions that we've made in the original costing. After that, when that's all been established, you then move into design development, and until you reach a point in the design development where the costing can be done, make sure that you're still on budget and that you've got enough information that you could go into construction and tender-ready documents. At the completion of while all that's going on, there's also another step which is outside of the consultant's realm, which is the financial planning, fundraising, and grant applications. Those are best gone after, especially grant applications, once you're at that tender-ready stage. Then, if you wanted to put a pause on the project in order to find that money to build the project, number 4, the financial, or number 3 at the tender-ready stage, that's the place to do it. Once you are confident you have the money together, or it's all sorted out, then you can go to tender. Once you've gone to tender, we had the tenders come in. If there's a tender which looks attractive, then you can award the tender to a contractor, and they can begin construction. The construction phase on this project should probably take about 12 months. Once the construction is completed, you've got your construction closeout, and you've got the commissioning, a very, very important stage in any project. Of course, you've got to have your grand opening party. So this is the final slide, which we put in just to demonstrate what you could do with a green roof. Because there's numerous opportunities in this for sustainable moves which could be made. A green roof is one, by having the glazing on both sides of the atrium, and we're proposing an actual glazed connection here where the flat roof meets the town hall. You've got tremendous daylight harvesting opportunities. The roof also provides an opportunity for rainwater harvesting, so you can actually collect the water that you're going to be using to water all of your landscaping. There's an opportunity, especially in the interior with the elevator shaft, that could be an opportunity for a living wall. And with all those things combined, that actually becomes a great educational opportunity for future generations, so that you can demonstrate how the building can actually help improve the environment around it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you, and thank you for your presentation tonight. I just have a question on the south atrium there in front of the boathouse. Are you proposing to take away that parking to make it a natural area?
We're proposing yes, to remove some of the parking that's along here. This would still be paved. Now, so this is just schematic. So the paving here we would suggest would be different than the paving of the rest of the asphalt parking lot, just to help delineate it as a space. But if the parking was reconfigured, you may not actually lose any parking spaces at all. We don't know that for sure because we haven't seen a plan of the parking configuration that's there. Just as a side note, the pattern that we've indicated on this is one of the interesting kind of synergies that developed while we were doing the design. With the angle of this pattern, we just repeated it on the front and carried it through. And as it turned out, it aligned perfectly with the two front entrances, the front entrance to the town hall and the front entrance to the atrium. And the two of those lines converged right at the point of the flagpole, which is dead center on the town hall. So many really kind of nice synergies that pull together.
Further question? Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. You mentioned near the beginning one of the things that were your guiding principles as you entered into the design was this concept of the library of the future.
Yes.
And I just wondered, what is the library of the future? I know that's a very complicated question, I guess, and maybe you can give me a somewhat brief answer, but to me, it just the design looks very much like the library of the past, right? It's got a circulation desk, it's got stacks, it's got a reading room. That looks like any library that I've seen before. So I wonder, what is different about it? Yeah, I guess that's the question. What is different, or does it need to be different? Maybe the library of the future is the same as the library of the past. I mean, maybe
no, they're not.
Okay.
They're definitely not. The Library of the Future envisions a lot more technology. So it's a lot more technology based. Within the and you wouldn't see that in what we've shown here, but in terms of the programming, if you look at the functional program with the computer labs that are in the basement, where they can actually give computer classes. When they do the wiring of the building, the wiring would, just the whole infrastructure of that space itself would allow for flexibility and change so that they can, and the interior spaces would have to allow for flexibility and change so that if stacks were less important and computer areas were more important, they could easily accommodate that both in terms of infrastructure and in terms of rearranging of the interior walls, as an example.
So all of that is considered in this design and in the quotes you've given, or the high level quotes, all that wiring, all of that, and potentially the opportunity to expand into the future in terms of technology.
Yes,
is all built in.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe we'll get some information on how next steps will proceed as well. But I wanted to thank you for your obvious passion, excellence here in our community of Southampton in Saugeen Shores, and bringing forward such a beautiful piece to it and adding to it. Some of my details would be to ask where and how do we add. I've been to marine museums in different places, and there's often a glass case with a particular piece inside of it, and I see opportunities for maybe some advanced selling of the museum by advocating for that here. And I'm wondering if where we get the art pieces, where we get the statues and the monuments, and this piece seems to be speaking to me that that's something that should be included as well. So when we get an opportunity to dig in and see where all these wires are going, or whether we'll be a wireless place, it is another interesting angle. And finally, I spoke to it. I was impressed with the presentation before, and I am tonight, and I'm impressed with all the work that's happened here. However, and I'm going to put my emergency management hat on a little bit here with the committee I serve on, and say I'd like to see a little more multi-purpose space thinking as well, and I brought that up before about an opportunity to put a standby generator or electrical backup generator on this particular expansion and redesign so that it can be used in the event of necessary cooling space, heating space whenever we have an emergency, because it's such a vital piece to the center core of the community. Why not? Thank you very much.
Councillor Mike Myatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to congratulate the committee again. I've said it several times over the last year of all the hard work the ad hoc committee's done with bringing this, bringing this presentation to council, and they've done a lot of work. So I commend all the committee and to the presenter this evening as well. Wonderful plans. I just want to take a little different direction. I have a couple questions about. One of our former presenters talked about the character of Southampton and preserving the character and the historical features and so on and so forth. I was a little surprised when I saw the conceptual drawings, the modernness. Of course, a new building does bring modernness to it.
Yes.
I recall 10 years ago, we 3,600 square feet onto the Port Elgin Library for $1.4 million. And renovated our existing library at that time, and I don't want to compare apples to oranges. I realize the comparable is different. But 1.4 million to 11.4 is a big difference. I know there's a lot of difference. I understand that. One thing we did with the Port Elgin Library, I think we took the oldness of the Carnegie Library and took the brickwork back to the addition and kind of blended the two together. So the old Carnegie look wasn't impacted too greatly. Some will say, well, yes, it was. Well, it's new too. So with the new building, it's going to bring that newness look. But it's we tried to I think they did the architect did it quite nicely. Was tying the old in with the new. I think it turned out quite nice. So I was a little surprised to see the overall look of the how we're tying it in with the old town hall look.
At this point, we haven't determined any.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
No, I'm just commenting.
Okay. Sure.
Did the committee, and I'm not sure if you can answer this question, Mr. Mayor, but did the committee take a look at, when we talk about 4 new meeting rooms and a theater for 220 people up and down and another assembly hall for 100 people and a teen room and all these rooms, I don't know who can answer this question, but was when the planning happened, when your task was assigned to you to come up with this sketch, these conceptual drawings, beautiful work. Was there any conversation? I'm sure there was, with the ad hoc committee about the whole area of feasibility from a feasibility standpoint. Is when we're designing a building of this nature, the need for all of the additional spaces that are put into this new drawing. So where did the 100 people for that room come from? The 4 additional meeting rooms, the 220 seat theater. Where did that come from? I'm curious to how that.
Well, that did come directly out of the meetings, because we sat down. Well, we met with the ad hoc committee, and then we met with about a dozen of the stakeholders, current leaseholders. We had the public meetings, and through all of that, flushed out what kind of spaces were required and how many spaces. Now, the committee had a certain idea of what they were thinking of, but through all those other meetings with all those other groups and through the public meetings, what the committee had sort of brought forward to us was reinforced. That yes, there was a demand for all of these spaces. So yes, the groups that we met with were the Bruce County Library staff, Southampton Arts Center, Southampton Arts Center, which is the gallery and the school and the society, the Bruce County Playhouse, Saugeen Shores Chamber of Commerce, Southampton BIA, Friends of the Southampton Library, Municipal Heritage Committee, Accessibility Advisory Committee, and the summer music. So between all that and the public meetings on top of that, and the comments that we receive back through the website.
That's fine. I have a lot more questions, but I think I'll leave it for a month or 2 or 3 months down the line when the time comes. So the last question I have, Mr. Mayor, from through the CAO, is when we talk about receiving the report, what does that mean?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it means literally quite that. You've received it. You're not deciding on any action forward. Staff will take any comments we hear back and report back. So you're not saying, yes, we're going ahead with this, or no, we're not going ahead with it.
Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to, if possible, just add something that might answer Councillor Myatt some of his questions. With regard to how the committee saw the spaces that we envisioned, with regard to the seating space for auditorium space, we thought that there was a need in the community for a larger auditorium space. The museum is a wonderful auditorium, but it's quite limited in its space. When we visited I think 7 different models around southern Ontario, showing library space, town hall space, conversions. And one of the things that people talked about was the need to have enough performance seating space. Stouffville, for instance, is a lovely space, but the people we spoke with said it was actually too small. It was like 138, and they weren't able to bring in and even keep a community theater group because the space was too small. They couldn't sell enough seats. So we thought about that. With regard to Deputy Mayor Charbonneau's question about the Library of the Future, and also this kind of answers some of your questions too, Councillor Myatt. The smaller meeting spaces and the different sized meeting spaces within the library and within the whole building was something we envisioned as a possible convention center to attract, as an economic development center. But also, one of the things we noticed in the Georgetown Library is that they had smaller meeting rooms that they rented out to business people who didn't have their own business center, but on a weekly basis or several times a week, they would actually pay rent for some of these spaces, and then they could meet with their clients, have meetings. So those were some of the things we thought about and that the committee discussed and gave to Sean as an idea.
Thank you, Cheryl. I think we're going to have lots of opportunity to discuss this at a further date once we get the report, and I think the idea was the presentation tonight. Thank you very much, Samantha and Sean, for the presentation and the work you did, and I want to echo Mike's comments, thank the committee for the hours they put into it and the vision. Everybody has great visions, and now we need to see where we go with the plan, and thank everyone.
Okay, thank you very much.
Vice Deputy Mayor Hubert.
Just as a follow-up, too, there will be a report coming from the ad hoc committee, which will add in some of the ideas that we're talking about fundraising and financial planning and to go along with all of this. So I'm not too sure exactly if we have an end date for that, but there will be a report coming from the ad hoc committee, too. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Mr. Mayor, I just wonder, in terms of sharing what we just saw with the public, because I think that would be very important. If there's an opportunity, I don't know to what extent the architect's work is finished, I suppose, but it would be neat if we could have some sort of packaging of what was just shown to us, that sort of zoom through the facility from front to back that could be shareable on social media in a way that you could actually click on that and see that go by in a sort of a virtual reality way. I don't know if you've got maybe you already have a plan in place for that, but it would be neat to have something, because social media is so important, and that would give us an opportunity for members of the public to see what we just saw there and comment on it and explore some ways, we get that feedback from people that we need about this design.
Oh, sure. We've already got it set up to do a fly-through, so that's not a problem.
Nice. That's great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So there is a recommendation then that Council receives the 2017 Town Hall and Library Architectural Feasibility and Design Study as presented by Three Stones Architecture and Design. Any questions on the recommendation? All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. So we'll move on to the next agenda item then, which is as soon as it comes up on my computer here, we'll know. We have a staff report on Pumpkin Fest funding, and I believe our CIO, David, will present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff received a request from Pumpkin Fest officials last week, and we included the request in your package tonight, and you've heard from the Pumpkin Fest folks. They're available to answer any questions. We did offer a couple of options for Council's consideration. One is that the up to $30,000 be offered as a grant, or as they've requested, a repayable loan.
The recommendation is that Council approves the request from the Chamber of Commerce for up to $30,000 and that staff negotiate the terms of the agreement, and that the Mayor and Clerk be authorized to sign the agreement, and that up to $30,000 be offered as, and we'll need to decide on this, option 1, a grant, or option 2, a repayable loan. So, some suggestions here. I'll go to Councillor Minaj first.
I think I can do this. There's some good news, though, Mr. Mayor, is that the Canada 150 committee that took a loan as well is repaying the loan in full. So there's money coming back that everybody might want to consider as an opportunity to repurpose. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My suggestion would be that we consider option 2 for the time being. I think that the best way for us to approach it, since it's such a limited time window that we have, and we don't really have the opportunity to look as carefully at this as we probably would like to in terms of just our due diligence around the public money. I think the best thing to do would be to offer it as a repayable loan for the time being, to give Pumpkin Fest the bridge they need and the stability they need to ensure that they can pay their bills going through the current cycle, and then for Council to consider as part of the 2018 budget process the potential, whatever of that money is used, and whatever their need is. If there is a need and they're unable to repay, at that stage we could consider a grant possibility to offset that. So my suggestion would be option 2, with that caveat that we could look at the situation following Pumpkin Fest to help the Chamber of Commerce out. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So then the recommendation is, does anybody want me to read it again? Hopefully not. That option 2, the repayable loan. Any further questions? All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. So the next item on our agenda then is Environmental Services and Transportation report on the Island Street Storm Sewer Outlet Phase 1 completion. And Amanda, our Director of Public Works, will present it.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Staff have been working with R.J. Burnside since January to look at the Island Street Storm Sewer Network and decide what the path forward should be. Through that work, it's been determined that most likely would be a municipal Class B to do that, which will be a public process where we look at different design alternatives. In order to do that, a number of studies are going to have to be done, and you can see those on pages 22 and 23 of the attached report. What we would like to do at this time is get some of the reports done this year that we know will help guide the direction of the Class B study. Those 3 include geotechnical investigation, environmental impact study, and archaeological assessment. These 3 are specific because geotechnical information will help us know scale of costs due to groundwater and types of material in the area. Environmental impact will be if there's any species at risk. That will guide further study about specific species in the archaeological, because if there's anything specific in that area, which is part of the SON influenced area, then it's important to know that, again, for cost and for scope of what our alternatives can include. So with that, we're asking for council to allow us to move forward with RJ Burnside with 15,000 for the EIS and a total of 23 for the geotech architectural, totaling the 38,000 in the financial impact. So some of the funding is coming from the RBC Blue Water project, and the others would be in our future capital project reserve because it was money unspent to date.
Well, thank you, Amanda. The recommendation is that Council receives the Island Street Storm Sewer Outlet Improvements Technical Memorandum prepared by R.J. Burnside and Associates Limited, which outlines the study requirements, approval requirements, and provides high-level engineering and construction estimates for the project, and that Council authorizes staff to direct R.J. Burnside and Associates to proceed with a geotechnical investigation, an environmental impact study, and an archaeological assessment of the project area. Some questions? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually have a question for the Director of Public Works, just a factual question. Amanda, what does OTTHYMO stand for? OTTHYMO. I tried looking it up and I couldn't find it, but I saw that it's frequently used.
So OTTHYMO, through you, Mr. Mayor, OTTHYMO is a software modeling program that will model storm events.
Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the resolution. I just point out this is one of those situations that just begs for a one-window approach to everything. 18 different approvals, more than $250,000 before you put a shovel in the ground for a storm sewer. I mean, it starts to make you question whether you can even construct things when you have to run up those kinds of costs for a simple storm sewer. And I think that there's a couple of items in here that came in the list that that probably could be revisited down the road. Things we're not planning to do right now that we may not need to do. Things like looking at water quality and stuff. Surely we have done source water protection for a reason, and that one of those reasons is that we know that we don't have significant drinking water threats. They've told us that. So to have to go back and study the water in every ditch that we're going to dig up and turn into a storm sewer is, I mean, it's just so burdensome, so costly, and much of it unnecessary in my view. So I hope that we can find ways to look at this list. I fully support doing the things that you're proposing to do now, but I hope that we can look at this list of tasks that's laid out in this report and pare it down some and find ways not to do certain of these things because it really is just an extremely costly project, and I think lots of it may be unnecessarily so. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Minaj.
I think I've got a few. One I wanted to be clear about. This is not natural. None of this water, I mean, every piece of water originates from the rain, I suppose, or from glacier melt. Somehow it becomes natural, but this is designed to be a runoff from roads, and we added to it as our water treatment plant backwash outflow. Is that correct? I'm asking Amanda, sorry.
Can you repeat the last part again? The backwash?
Is it not part of our gravity filter backwash runoff that we push out into the same area from the water treatment plant?
No, I think that goes to the sewer system, right?
I don't know. I believe so, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I believe it does. It does not go to surface water.
Okay, well, I need to get that point clarified because my understanding is that we intentionally dug out that ditch area and we made it so that it could take lake water that is used in our water treatment plant process, not contaminated by anything, just a regurgitated lake water process in our water treatment plant. Having said that, I'm still at odds with the fact that there are many phrases in here that speak to we want to do stormwater sewage management, as they call it, and they're worried about all the runoff. So are we. That's why we brought this forward. We didn't want the beach polluted with man-made effluent that is carried in the stormwater directly onto the beaches. And then we go into spades and spades of studies of whether the ospreys perch there. And I happen to know that they don't. And I happen to know that the birding group that is active in our community knows exactly where the ospreys are. And so maybe we can save some money on some of this by, I just, the level of detail that it goes into is stunning. And it expects us to believe that nature will eventually, much like it did at North Shore Park, by the way, in the drainage ditch there, nature will find a way to exist in a man-made drainage facility, and it does. But it implies here that we then created it, and now we have to manage it against species that could be endangered and extinct. If those species are relying on our man-made runoff, I'm shocked that they would do so. So I'm confused with the level of detail that we're being asked to get into on a man-made structure that we're asking to take away from our beach and somehow take it underground where it has more natural filtering process. And then we worry about whether an osprey is perching on a branch overlooking this man-made effluent. I don't get it. And maybe I need some help with that. Thank you.
I think Amanda can address.
Sure. So the Municipal Engineers Association worked with the Ministry of the Environment to put together the Class EA process. And in that manual, it prescribes what you need to do for the different class of projects. When you look at a new outfall to a receiving water body, which would be, in this case, Lake Huron, that automatically puts it into a Schedule B. And to do Schedule B, you have to tick off certain boxes before you can complete the project. And in there is a look at SAR, a look at archaeological, First Nations consultation. It goes down the list. There's a whole slew of things that we have to look at. And that's what this is laying out. When it comes to SAR, species at risk, the first thing is that they're going to do that inventory. That's what this study that we're looking at now is. They're going to identify if there are mussels or mussel habitat in the water channel that goes out to the beach. They're going to see that if there are birds that nest in that area, they don't necessarily mean they're going to say a no or be a good for the project either way, but it means if we do find bald eagle nests, then there's a certain window of construction time frame that we'll have to work in, and the consultant and ourselves will be forced to explain to the ministry how we're going to mitigate those impacts. Does that make sense?
I believe I understand. My point of contention is this. We're taking a man-made drainage system and we're trying to change where it effluents to. Not above ground where it can actually sit on our beach and cause all of us problems, humans and nature, but taking it underground into a filtration system where it can't affect anyone. And so how we have to buy into this process when we're just swapping how we're doing business with the same water is what I'm absolutely up against.
Any further? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one more question that Councillor Menage's first question prompted. And that's from page 11 of the report, and I'm sorry to kind of get specific here, but there is a statement that says the Island Street sewer outfall is a critical component to the performance of the upstream storm sewer network. Without a sufficient outfall, upstream sections of storm sewer cannot be upgraded without negatively impacting the downstream limits of the network. So I'd be happy to send the question to you if you want to take more time to answer, but does that mean that this is saying that this particular outfall is of seminal importance to by the upstream storm sewer network? Does that mean that section, all the new subdivisions in Southampton and that kind of thing, or is it smaller than that, or? Thanks.
So the outlet can be thought of as the same thing we went through with the Market Street outlet, where we want to start at the bottom, get that size for the drainage area properly. Right now, we know it was sized for a small rain event, a 2-year event, plus about a 30-hectare drainage area. But when we've gone and walked and used topography, we see that there's about 70 that are going to it. So the drainage area is twice what we had originated. So in that drainage shed, it is a significant restriction because not a lot of water can actually get out that outlet. So most of it is going overland. So by increasing the size of the pipes in the outlet, we'll be able to transfer a larger storm event underground. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Any further questions then? And all in favor of the recommendation? That's carried. So the next item on our agenda then is a Planning and Development Staff Report, and it has to do with the site plan agreement for Snyder Development on Devonshire Place townhouses, and I guess Jay's going to present, Development Coordinator.
Yes, just briefly. So Snyder Development has proposed a site plan on the south side of Devonshire Road in the latest phase of the Summerside subdivision. The 18 townhouse units are to be built as shown on the attachments, the various attachments, including most recently a landscape plan, which I think was circulated as well.
So then the recommendation is that a bylaw be passed to authorize a site plan agreement with Snyder Development Corporation, Inc. Any questions? Go ahead.
Well, this is a question for the next report with you to the planner, Jay. Maybe it relates to the next one, but I'll ask it now. The parkland dedication, it's concerning me a little bit that I know north of the Beaner Park, there is construction development that we recently approved. We took 5% cash. Pardon me, we didn't take cash. Yes, we did take cash in lieu of parkland. So no parkland north of Beaner, which makes sense because it's right next door. And I know Summerside agreements long ago. We took some lands. I think there was some lands just on top of the Beaner Bush with the archaeological site. I think not really a usable space, I don't think, for parkland, playground, swing slides, etc., etc. I think the closest park to Beaner would be Nodwell Park, I believe. The question I have, Mr. Mayor, through you to Jay, is that as we take cash in lieu of parkland, I get a little concerned that the walks, is becoming longer and longer for grandma and grandpa and mom and dad pushing a stroller to a neighborhood park. And the question I have of you, when is the next development that we're looking at on the books? Is it north of Devonshire Road? Would be the next phase of development? If so, would we be looking at a parcel of land north of Devonshire versus taking cash in lieu of parkland? Have we thought that far ahead? And secondly, how far are we away from Beaner Park, say, to the next nearest park? So as we build further to the north in the tablelands with various construction, Snyder development, there's no parkland in that area. So what's next? Are we going to be taking parkland in the future north of Devonshire? And if so, how far would that be away from Beaner in terms of meters? And what size of acreage could we be looking at in the future?
Yes, so the first one first is that the next, the Summerside subdivision rather is a comprehensive plan subdivision where the town has identified and recommended and supported the developer's proposal to dedicate large tracts of trail lands as well as a large central neighborhood park of about 3.5 acres, I think. And that is just northwest intersection of Devonshire and Bruce Street. So very close, maybe only 200 meters from this this townhouse development, which is only, and then that Central Park is only about 500 meters from the Beaner Park once, in a straight line. So once the roads get built up, it'll be very, very well served, the subdivision as a whole over time. You asked when is the next time we take it. Well, it's still up for some, based on the market and how well they build out, but given things, how they look and what we expect in the near future, it wouldn't be too long before the developer will be required by us to serve the subdivision.
Just to be clear, Jay, from Beaner Park to the next future potential development for parkland, north of Devonshire would go 500 meters?
Correct.
Between the two parks?
Correct.
Thanks.
Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just for clarity, Jay, in the landscape plan, it shows the small parking area here, just on the west side of the development. And I guess just for clarity's sake, I assume there's something in the subdivision, the site plan agreement that that places that under the bailiwick of the developer. Ultimately through some sort of condominium corporation or something to maintain, or does that ultimately become a town of Saugeen Shores responsibility? We assume this road, we assume this parking lot. I just wanted to get an idea. I'm fairly certain you have that sorted out, but I'd just like to hear it.
Yeah, this would be everything inside the boundaries of the lot will be privately maintained, including the road, the driveway rather, the parking areas, and whatever corporation, whether Snyder continues to own it permanently or whether he chooses to convert the condo, they'll be responsible.
Councillor Minaj.
I wondered why we wouldn't. I can't see if it's saying it, Jay. Direct question to you. I got three of them, I guess. Is there an opportunity to make this a one-way system rather than having vehicles accessing on and off at Devonshire and on and off at Waterloo, in particular because Devonshire and Waterloo are both collector roads, and we have documentation that says that we really shouldn't be having that many entrances and exits onto our collector roads. So my question one would be, could we have gone with a one-way street system here for this development? Two, why aren't we picking up garbage at curbside and blue box at curbside? So if they're going to go to a garbage receptacle system where Basra is going to come in or whoever it is going to come in and pick up the garbage, how are we dealing with the blue box recycle component for this development?
Okay, the second one first is that over our collection bylaw at some point obligates larger developments to go by a private contractor, and so they manage all their waste, that they're picked up as needed, as far as I know.
Yeah, and part of that, this is a condo development, so this entire parcel is private land. The street is private land, and we have not historically collected garbage on private streets.
And then for the first question, it was determining whether it was a one-way access. It wasn't something that we discussed directly related to this development, though given the information the developer provided in our review, it was appropriate to provide access to both Devonshire and Waterloo. We recognizing that they are collector roads in our plan. Our policy is not to prohibit access, it's to restrict it, and these were preferred restrictions for the design that was proposed.
How are we dealing with blue box?
Well, I don't have a specific answer on that one.
It'll be private like the rest of the condo developments in Saugeen Shores, like the one by Max or by McDonald's. That is all collected by private collectors, both the garbage and the blue boxes, as it is in the condo development north of Southampton or south of Southampton.
So follow up through to you then, Mr. Mayor. So how do we ensure that it's being completed properly and adequately on a private piece of property? How do we make sure all these people are?
How do we? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just asking because I happen to know that there are apartment complexes in our community where they don't blue box. They throw it all into the garbage receptacle, and the garbage gets picked up by private contractor and puts it in our landfill site. So I mean, that's a little in your face, and I get that, and that's maybe unfortunate. But I would like to know how we're going to ensure that they put things in a blue box. If we can't see a blue box, if we can't see them filling a blue box, how do we know they're doing it?
How do we know we do that at any piece of property in the town? How would we know anywhere in the town that somebody's putting anything in a blue box? Oh. That's it's most of us. But I mean, you're making an assumption that everybody does. I can guarantee you everybody doesn't. I think. We would need a bylaw to do that, in which we don't ensure that everybody uses Blue Box, but that's a separate question about this site plan agreement. So, any further questions? All in favor? That's carried. So the next item is a staff report. Again, it's a development agreement with Lead Summerside Phase 2, Stage 3, and again, our development coordinator, thank you, will present. Jay.
So in just west of where we were just talking about, there's the in the west edge of the second roundabout in, if you're familiar with it, is the next stage of the Lord Elgin Summerside development. I've shown it on the maps. The developer's proposing 30 lots that would connect the west edge of Devonshire with the north end of Highlands, so there'll be a connection to the highway, and also provide a trail block as parkland, as I've highlighted. Doesn't show up very well, but it's, the green line is supposed to conceptually show the direction of the trail, like running east-west.
Thank you, Jay. So the recommendation is that council considers a bylaw to authorize a subdivision agreement with Lord Elgin Estates Development Limited for Phase 2, Stage 3 of the Summerside subdivision. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. And one further is a staff report, Community Services, Parks and Recreation staff report. It has to do with Bruce County Public Library Agreement, and I think Jane Jagielowski will present.
Yes, thank you. Quickly this evening, I just wanted to bring you up to date with what's been happening with the county. They've met with all 8 local communities to solidify a comprehensive agreement for all 20 branches in Bruce County. This did not exist previously. This agreement provides Saugeen Shores with a guaranteed increase of 2% annually for the next 15 years. Obviously, we heard tonight a presentation in regard to the Southampton Library, and what I wanted to share with you this evening is obviously 15 years is a long time, and if within those 15 years something comes to fruition in either libraries, we certainly will negotiate what that may look like within an agreement. So this evening we're asking for approval to approve the agreement, and the financial impact is a 2% annual increase.
Thank you, Jane. So the recommendation is that council approves a bylaw to authorize a 15-year agreement between Bruce County Public Library and the town of Saugeen Shores for the provision of library services. Is there any questions or comments to that? We'll start with Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I thank the director for that clarification on the rental. I guess the question that the Section D, and maybe even the mayor might be able to provide some context around this, any new facilities or major renovations or improvements to present facilities shall be jointly planned between the municipality and the library board. I just wonder what that means practically. I mean, here we are tonight. We've begun at an early stage of planning a major renovation to a library facility, and the library board isn't, I don't think, well, I suspect they've been involved. Certainly they've been involved, but I just wonder, could you flesh that out a bit? What are we committing to with regard to that in terms of the partnership with the library board?
Yeah, we're probably one of the few communities, other than maybe Brockton, that has had an addition to the library over the last 10, 15 years. So we do have some history on, obviously, putting an addition onto the library. Throughout that process, there was extensive communication with staff and with members from the county for the library, particularly for the design of that particular library. So throughout that process, they were involved from very early when we had meetings with the architect right up to the ribbon cutting.
assume it's unlikely, and I just wanted to clarify that there's no opportunity for the library board to veto a change on the point of cost to the library board, right? I mean, if you increase the square footage, it's going to increase the cost to the library board under this agreement, and there's a joint planning phraseology in there, and I guess it's really it remains sort of in our court though to change these. Pardon me, to change these facilities, and it's a partnership. It's a partnership, and not. There's no hard line where if the library board disagrees that we should be doing this, where we are agreeing that we wouldn't do it. I guess it's just what I want to clarify.
I don't see that in the agreement. I think we're here, Mike, or Councilor Mike.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just wondering if you could maybe perhaps answer this question, or Jane, but with your extensive library board experience, and of course you good work with the county, I'm just wondering about the 2% for 15 years. Is that in your mind like what if ifs in 3, 4, 5 years the Ontario Consumer Price Index is 3, 4, 5, 6%, who knows? Is it customary that you'd have that kind of a long-term agreement for 2% for 15 years? Is it something we should be tying our hands that way? Is it good agreement, bad agreement? I just wonder if you could, with your library board experience, maybe comment on that with county experience.
Well, it could be at 0 for 4 or 5 years too, Mike. But I mean, I'll tell you where it came from, and it started about probably 15 years ago that they started to even pay leases and pay money and rents. So they came up with a rate, and for about 5 years in a row, there was no increases at all. And some of the municipalities had asked for an increase, so the library board decided, and Bruce County Council supported them, to say, yes, it's fair, I guess, that we will increase our rents to the communities. But it's like, the former mayor used to call these brown dollars, Mike, because they come out of this pocket, they go to Walker, and they come right back here. So, and the bigger portion comes out of this pocket here in Saugeen Shores and goes to all other 15 branches. So, I mean, it was a number that we wanted to recognize that, yes, municipalities have increasing costs, and 2%. If it goes to 5%, I'd be the first to say let's support and go back to the board and say we should revisit that.
Mayor, the 2% is right across the county then for all libraries.
Yeah, this has been an attempt because of their 17 different branches and 8 municipalities, and there was always each one of them had different understandings about and different agreements when they came into the county system about what was provided and what wasn't. And this was an attempt to try and come with a uniform system that applied to all libraries and all municipalities.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
I just wanted to add a comment to what the Deputy Mayor said. The library was involved in everything we've done about the concept. They were involved in the initial assessment, the structural assessment, and in fact, most of their comments drove the square footage that shows up in the drawings with the red color as library space. I also just want to point out that in the agreement it talks about $7.32 per square foot, and then it says internal square footage excluding basements. I want you to just remember that we talked about a lower level, a second floor, and a third floor. So that lower level in the library is not considered basement. There's 2 levels in the library, and they were very instrumental in coming up with the ideas about what the library of the future would hold that drove the square footage that ended up in the concept drawings.
The other thing I would just point out, the Bruce County Library was just received accreditation from it's an organization that accredits libraries throughout Ontario, and this is the type of thing that you see. There's a set of criteria that you need to meet. They're not all that onerous for rural libraries, but it's a set of criteria that you need to meet this accreditation, and to the benefit of our communities, the communities and the library staff that we did receive accreditation. There's very few rural libraries that have received that. Okay, any further questions? All in favor then? That's carried. So, That's the end of our agenda. We have one other item. There's it's not. There's 4 items there for minutes of committee meetings, and we do have one report of a department head, an information report, and I understand Jessica would like to, our development coordinator would like to talk to it. Welcome, Jessica. Go ahead. To the minutes.
So I'm talking about the Committee of Adjustment minutes, and in particular, we've asked Jay to work on advancing as quickly as he can some change to language in the comprehensive zoning bylaw. Accessory structures, such as a garage, cannot be designed and drawn to have a second floor that can be used for habitation. So we're running into a number of these that are surfacing every meeting, and more of the members of the committee are saying no. So we're hoping that I wanted to point this out because I'm hoping that staff can come back with another revision to the comprehensive zoning bylaw as quickly as possible to either say yes we can or enforce the no we can't, and how we're going to deliberate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to bring you up to date on the Economic Development Strategic Plan. So 2017 budget did identify $30,000 for an Economic Development Strategic Plan. So the request for proposal went in July, was posted July for the first Economic Development Strategic Plan for the town. The proposal has been awarded. The contract was awarded to Gaudet and Associates, Mellor Murray Consulting. Ron Gaudet has come to Saugeen Shores and spent a day with me. We did a tour. We had a discussion about the economy and our 3 economic drivers, currently identified as our 3 economic drivers, being nuclear, tourism, and agriculture. So the strategic plan, the RFP calls for actionable items and strategic approach, also to support our business community. Consultation will begin next week with individual interviews, and the Economic Development Advisory Committee will be doing a workshop mid-October, and I expect the project to be complete by the end of the year. Thanks.
Thank you, Jessica. Any questions for Jessica? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
It's not really a question, but the current economic drivers that you mentioned, the 3 of them, you went by too quickly. The Committee of Adjustment had an important item in there, which was about a 4th economic driver, which is sort of healthcare related. It talked about expansion of the Southampton Care Center with more living accommodation, and so I just wanted to throw that out. That there is a 4th economic driver that perhaps is a little less noticeable, but healthcare is big, and there is an expansion coming in Southampton with the care center.
Thank you, Councillor Dave Maya.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thanks, Jessica, for the report. It's been about a year since I sat on the Economic Development Advisory Committee, and I miss a lot sitting with you guys. So when I was on the committee, we actually had 4 pillars of economic activity, and they were the 3 listed here. But the 4th one, and it's evident tonight when we see the subdivisions that are being built here, which is the construction economy, the building of houses, the people who come here for retirement and buy property. So their whole real estate construction is a very important aspect of our economy. I don't think it should be overlooked. We spend a great deal of time in this room talking about those components, and a lot of people make their living off of either buying and selling houses or building them. So that one in mind too. And I'm looking forward to participating in the strategic plan.
Any further questions for Jessica? Thank you very much, Jessica. That's the end of our agenda. We'll need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Madison and Councillor Minaj. All in favor? We're